Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 8th of January. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Residents of the capital woke up to a thin white dusting of snow, but the storm didn't shut the city down as feared. The north has experienced tougher winter conditions, and the worst is likely still ahead of us. We get more in this report from IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan.
The old city of Jerusalem, absolutely gorgeous from the air as the winter storm gently dropped a covering of white snow. Beautiful, but the disappointing 5 centimeters was not enough to keep the kids out of school. With the roads cleared, the municipality opened school from 10 o'clock and children braved the snowdrifts to get back to classes. Most of the snow turned to slush after the temperatures rose above zero and the rain melted it. The municipality preparations turned out to be well organized, and snowplows and tractors never even let the snow or slush linger on the streets before they were swept clear. The only major weather-related incident in the capital came from the Muslim quarter in the Old City, which saw a roof collapse due to snow. No injuries were reported. However, on Highway 375, a fatal wreck occurred when a bus slid out of control and hit a parked car, killing a 13-year-old boy and injuring 2 others. Along the coast, rain and hail continued to pour. On Route 443, police blocked the road, much to the ire of the drivers, and there were a few wrecks due to the ice. Further up the mountain in Judea and Samaria, residents hunkered down to bear with the snow. Even in Ramallah, the Palestinians were confronting the rare storm, and fire trucks kept the streets open. IDF soldiers paused to celebrate the weather. Now that the first wave of the much-anticipated storm has passed, it's ice that is the main concern, and major roads to the capital could be shut again as temperatures are expected to drop below zero. In the northern Golan Heights, an average of about half a meter of snow fell, with over a meter at the ski slopes on Mount Hermon. In Safed, between 15 to 20 centimeters of snow accumulated, but the streets were open. And of course, the good news out of the storm is that the waters are flowing to the Sea of Galilee, and it has now risen some 7 centimeters and counting. Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
Tourists in the country concerned about reaching the airport should take note that the Ministry of Tourism is operating a special hotline offering assistance in getting to the airport. The number is 03-975-4260 and is operating around the clock. Once more, that's 03-975-4260. A day after the massacre of 12 people in an attack on the Charlie Hebdo satirical newspaper in Paris, France remains on high alert today as police search for 2 of the suspects. The third suspect, 18-year-old Hamid Mourad of Reims, turned himself into police late last night after seeing his name on the social media. The 2 still on the loose are brothers, 35-year-old Saïd Kouachi and 33-year-old Sherif Kouachi. They were reportedly recognized by a gas station attendant in northern France who alerted the authorities. The gunmen were hooded as they stormed the weekly magazine office that was known for lampooning Islam as well as other religions. At least 7 people with ties to the suspects have been arrested in connection with the attack, which was the deadliest terror attack on French soil in decades. There is also a manhunt for another gunman who today shot to death a female police officer with an assault rifle and a handgun in another attack in a southern suburb of Paris that also left a municipal worker in serious condition. During a visit to the site, French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve said that it is too early to ascertain if the 2 incidents are connected. Among the 12 victims of the magazine attack was a Jewish member of the Charlie Hebdo staff, George Wolinski. The 81-year-old son of a Tunisian mother and a Polish father was a well-known and influential caricaturist whose work was regularly published by several daily French newspapers. For 5 decades, he entertained his compatriots by spoofing romance and sexuality, as well as making serious points about politics and society, dating back to the French student revolt in 1968. He embraced his Jewish identity and illustrated the international bestseller, How to Be a Jewish Mother, as well as a book called Hanukkah Harry. A leading French expert in terrorism says that the gunmen in the Paris magazine attack were likely trained in Syria and that he believes that there are thousands of cold-blooded killers just like them all over Europe.
In the past, we had a few hundreds dangerous people on all Europe. Today, we have at least a few hundred dangerous people in each European country. That means thousands of dangerous people in Europe and thousands of people willing to take a revenge on the Western world, willing to kill people and willing to go on the jihad. In Syria, or in Europe. Everyone could find a Kalashnikov in Paris with the good contacts and buy it. And maybe everyone could try to train to use it in the cellar, in the forest, in the mountains somewhere. But to use an arm, a weapon in this kind of context, with the people crying, the blood, the smoke, the noise, the enormous stress of killing people, you must be used to this. You must be trained to this. So that tells us that probably, very likely, those men were really trained. Of course, the operation was very well planned and prepared, but those people were trained and were probably trained in real condition, in war condition, and that's take us to Syria and to the Syrian jihad.
Joining me now in the studio to discuss the Paris terror attack is attorney Kalev Myers, who is a founder of the Jerusalem Institute for Justice. Thank you for coming in this evening. Now, I understand you recently addressed the French Parliament about the danger posed by radical Islam. Do you agree with the assessment that these terrorists are just the tip of the iceberg and that there are legions more, not only in France, but throughout Europe?
Absolutely, Aaron. And the reason we went to France was to talk about the systematic abuse of human rights of the Palestinians by the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, and the radical Islamic regimes. And what we said is, if every area that these groups are receiving responsibility, they're carrying out blatant human rights abuses, and this a threat is coming to France. But it seems to me that the people in France are in denial, and even looking at the response to this attack, I'm very concerned about it. People want to say this is an attack on freedom of expression. It's far beyond that. These are fundamental organizations that have declared their desire of world conquest, starting in Middle East and spreading throughout Europe. And this is what's happening today.
In fact, you're quite right. Until now, the French have been very reluctant to label the recent spate of anti-Semitic attacks and even attacks on the police as terrorism, although this time they actually did. Do you think that this indicates some sort of recognition of the dangers posed by radical Islam?
This should be a wake-up call, but I don't think it's being taken like that in France. France is in a real dilemma. They have about 10 million Muslims out of a population of 60 million people. So that's a very strong electoral power. And so politicians need to be concerned about this, and they're concerned about not only coming out and calling the child by its name, but actually taking proactive action. Now's the time to take action. If not, it'll be too late. France just released another 300 soldiers, French military soldiers, into Paris to walk around and to protect the stores and so on and so forth. This is on top of already 700 soldiers that are already patrolling different areas throughout France. So they're taking defensive measures. But until they start taking offensive measures, which is to declare anyone who's affiliated with ISIS as a criminal, to investigate, to arrest, to indict, they're going to be. This is a slippery slope, and I'm afraid that they're in for major problems.
What's holding them back if they don't do these things that you're recommending? Is it a sense of political correctness, or is it simply being unaware of the magnitude that these terrorists are posing them?
I think number one, they're in denial. How could this actually be happening on European soil? Sort of like 1936 in Germany. This can't really be happening. We're a modern democratic country, and so on and so forth. And these people are coming to France because they're looking for freedom, and so that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is just a concern about the 10 million Muslims that can vote in their elections, that have a voice, that'll get on the street and demonstrate, etc. And so they're very concerned of these. Well, we don't want to be called Islamophobes and warmongers and so on and so forth. But I'm afraid if they don't wake up and start acting, France could be the first country to actually fall to Islamic conquest.
That's what many are saying. Well, Kalev Myers, the founder of the Jerusalem Institute for Justice, thank you very much for coming in this evening and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you, Aaron.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the world must join together to fight international Islamic terror as he condemned the Paris attack in the strongest possible terms.
Attacks of radical Islam know no boundaries. These are international attacks, and the response has to be international. The terrorists want to destroy our freedoms and our civilization, and therefore all the free countries and all the civilized societies have to band together to fight this scourge And if we stand together, and if we're not divided, then we can defeat this tyranny that seeks to extinguish all our freedoms. I wish once again to express the sympathy that every citizen of Israel feels for the people of France and for the bereaved families. We are experiencing these attacks time and again. We know the pain, but we also know the resolution with which free societies can defeat terror, however dreadful, however threatening.
Other world leaders also strongly denounced the Paris attack, calling for the perpetrators to be brought to justice and for a united stand of freedom over terrorism.
This horrific attack is meant to divide. We must not fall into that trap. This is a moment for solidarity around the world. We must stand strong for freedom of expression and tolerance and stand against the forces of division and hate.
We must never allow the values that we hold dear of democracy, of freedom of speech, to be damaged by these terrorists. We must stand against what they have done.
I would like to say directly to the people of Paris and of all of France that each and every American stands with you today, not just in horror or in anger or in outrage for this vicious act of violence, but we stand with you in solidarity and in commitment both to the cause of confronting extremism and in the cause which the extremists fear so much and which has always united our two countries, freedom.
Sadly, we can expect more of this because the ISIL, or Daesh as they call it in the Middle East, death cult, has declared war on the world. These are people who hate us, not because of anything that we've done, but because of who we are and how we live. They hate our freedom, they hate our pluralism, they hate the welcome that we extend to people of all faiths, all cultures, all sexualities. They hate that. And the point I make is that we will defend our way of life, we will defend our values, but what we can never do is compromise our values in defending them.
Thousands of people around the world have taken to the streets to express their own outrage and sadness over what happened in Paris under the banner of "We Are All Charlie." Journalists led a march into the Place de la République in eastern Paris near the site of the attack, waving papers, pencils and pens, although most of the crowd weren't from the media world but came in an expression of solidarity to support the freedom of speech. Other demonstrations were held at London's Trafalgar Square and in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. About 1,000 others gathered near the European Union headquarters in Brussels. In Spain, about 200 people held a vigil outside the French embassy in Madrid, while similar gatherings took place in several other European cities.
I think what shocks me the most is that it has actually happened, in this day and age, that some men could just walk into a building and decimate a whole team.
The message they tried to convey was never against religion, against Islam. It was, and other religions have been targeting as well. So I think that they were trying to show that it's important to be free to have a laugh about pretty much anything.
We tend to react by limiting our own freedoms, thinking that we're protecting ourselves because that's the way to deal with the problem, and it isn't. Every single time there's a terrorist attack of this kind, you hear politicians saying, oh, we're going to stand up for our rights, we're going to stand up for our way of life, we're not going to let them change things. And then we do. We have more surveillance, we have more invasion of individual liberties and so on.
There were also several vigils held in North American cities. Some of the largest rallies were held in Montreal, San Francisco, New York, and Washington, D.C., where protesters gathered in a symbolic show of solidarity at an interactive institute of journalism called the Newseum.
And that's why we're here at the Newseum. This is a building that represents freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of thought. Ultimately, the people who committed these atrocities today, the barbarians, I qualify them as, they were attacking not only the newspaper but also the institution of the republic that is freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of thought. And that's why we're here today, to defend those values, to defend those rights ultimately. Because if people are silenced for their beliefs, in my opinion, that's an attack against the entire country.
Here in the USA, we had September 11, so it was something very huge. But in France, we never had something like that. And to realize as French that it can happen everywhere, anytime, and in your country, it really hurts. And I'm now understanding better people who suffered from September 11.
Here at home, in turning to election news, Moshe Kahlon is expected to announce another candidate on his list tonight. Likud is looking to roll back the size of the cabinet, and registration for next week's Habayit Yehudi primary is now closed. Here with all the updates is IBA's political correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
We'll start with the new Kulanu party, which is slowly being put together by Moshe Kahlon, one name at a time. A news conference is scheduled for 8 o'clock tonight, when Kahlon will announce that he is adding Major General Yoav Gallant as the 6th member of his Kulanu list. The former head of Southern Command, Gallant nearly became Chief of Staff in 2011, but a controversy known as the Harpaz affair prevented him from being appointed. The mudslinging battle between then Defense Minister Ehud Barak and outgoing Chief of Staff Gabi Ashkenazi led to reports of plans to improperly advance Gallant to become the next IDF chief. The incriminating document turned out to be a forgery. Gallant will be the strongest security element on the Kulanu list, which has enlisted former Ambassador Michael Oren for his diplomatic standing, Eli Laluf for his anti-poverty platform, education maven Dr. Yifat Sassabiton, and family rights activist Rachel Azaria. Bayit Yehudi will hold its primary on Wednesday, and registration has closed with 42 candidates in contention. The final slate of contenders include 11 women, 2 Druze, and 1 Arab, as well as at least 3 who do not identify as religious. Candidates had to gather signatures for 150 party members and pay 7,000 shekels to the party to register. On Wednesday, Bayit Yehudi's 77,000 members will be able to vote in 119 polling places, with each member allowed to choose 7 candidates. Meanwhile, word out of Likud is that the party plans to push for canceling legislation passed last March that limits the cabinet to 18 ministers. The law is intended to minimize government spending, but Likud sources say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will have a hard time forming a stable government with so few ministries to offer his party and coalition partners should he win. Supporters of the move point to the 32nd government, which had 30 ministers and survived for 4 years. And the Prime Minister's office announced that Netanyahu's Chief of Staff, Ari Haro, has completed his term and will be leaving his post and joining the Likud's election campaign staff. And that's today's Political Roundup. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. 67 years after Israel's Declaration of Independence was signed on May 14, 1948, it appears that some of the 37 signatures have begun to fade. Officials say that they are now applying the most advanced technology in the world to save one of the nation's most important historical documents, and they've taken it to the laboratory at the Israel Antiquities Authority. It is being treated with a custom-designed high-tech multispectral imaging technology that was specially developed to preserve the Dead Sea Scrolls. The advanced digital photographic system will document and help to preserve the manuscript. The near-infrared exposure allows letters that have faded over time to be seen in a precise image of what the document looked like at the time of its creation. Now taking a look at local finance on the last day of the trading week, and the shekel put in a mixed performance in foreign currency trading, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up across the board. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. Returning now to the stormy weather, and joining us by telephone is Oren Davidoff of the Israel Meteorological Service. Hi, Oren.
Hi, good evening.
Thanks for being with us. So today we basically seem to have experienced a slight pause before the next storm system moves in?
That's right. We're currently experiencing some kind of a subsiding system right now with local rain showers mainly over the central and actually southern regions. The north is getting less and less precipitation in the past few hours, and the precipitation is intensifying gradually in the center and the south. And also throughout the night, we're talking about a drop, an additional significant drop in temperatures. It's early morning, very low temperatures over the central mountains and even the northern Negev mountain regions, as we are forecasting snow over Jerusalem and the northern Negev mountain regions that will occur throughout the day tomorrow, especially with very low temperatures around noon tomorrow, temperatures around 0 degrees Celsius, also in Jerusalem and the northern Negev mountain regions. We're talking about extreme temperatures in those regions with any kind of precipitation that will fall throughout the day will probably be most likely as snow and even heavy snow at times. With a good chance of it being accumulating throughout the day. Extreme temperatures will also be throughout the night with severe risk for freezing and icing on the roads, and that will accompany us throughout the night tomorrow.
Great.
As looking into early Saturday morning, we still have some local showers, mainly in the center and the south, which will gradually subside, especially throughout the morning, during the noon. But we are expecting an additional system, and a very significant one, from late afternoon throughout the evening on Saturday. That's when we're going to have significant amounts of precipitation mainly in the north and the center. And again, we're talking about heavy snowfall over the northern mountain regions, and perhaps a little in Jerusalem, but that probability is rather low. The main focus is on the northern mountain regions on Saturday night into Sunday morning.
Okay, Oren Davidoff of the Israel Meteorological Service, thanks for being with us this afternoon and getting us all caught up.
Thank you, and have a warm weekend.
Thank you, you too. Well, a national storm information hotline is being maintained by the police for citizens to call if they have any urgent inquiries about the weather front. That number is 1-700-705-100. Again, 1-700-705-100. Here now are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this snowy afternoon. I'll be back at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a safe, cozy evening, and shalom from Jerusalem.